Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, January 27th, 2026 at 10 a.m. I'm going to do a roll call and then I'll read our little script. So for CRAC members, Tim Brain,
Here.
Emily Junkins,
Here.
Liz Phelps,
Here.
Hillary Hedges-Rayport,
Here.
Gary Beller,
Here.
and Peter Brace. And then staff, Leah Hill.
Here.
And okay, and Matt Fee.
Here.
Okay, and then intended speakers, Paul Santos.
Oh, here. I'm sorry.
And Chloe Coggins.
Here.
All right, thank you. Okay. Scripts for remotely conducting open meetings. Good morning. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please be aware that other people may be able to see you and take care not to share your device's screen. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Please silence all devices and phones. For items with public comment, after committee members have finished their discussion on an agenda item, the chair will afford members of the public up to 3 minutes to speak. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their name and any affiliations. To give public comment, you must be recognized by the chair and speak through the chair. There is to be no crosstalk with others in attendance. To be recognized for making a public comment, use the raise hand feature by clicking on the React tab at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then click on the raise hand button. When you've finished your comment, please click the lower hand button. It's important for me to note that CRAC isn't required by law to take public comment. We do so because we need your invaluable input. We view public comment as a privilege, so please remain respectful in your comments and do not disparage others or the members of this committee. Okay. Okay. Is there any public comment on subjects not on this agenda? Okay, seeing none. Approval of the minutes, December 9, 2025.
Move to approve.
Who was that?
Doug.
Okay, who seconded?
Matt.
Okay, Matt. Okay, the motion came from Doug Rose. The second came from Matt Fee. Discussion, are there any edits? Seeing none, roll call vote. Tim Brain.
Aye.
Emily Junkins.
Aye.
Liz Phelps.
Aye.
Hillary Hedges-Rayport. Gary Beller.
Aye.
Matt Fee.
Aye.
Doug Rose.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Okay, so item number 5, per the Conservation Commission's request, review the design for Two Shore Road, review answers from the CRAC response template, and discuss any changes that may be warranted to better promote coastal resiliency and consistency with the town's coastal resilience plan. Okay. I assume we all looked at it. And do you all understand that this is the buildings at 92 Washington Street where new structures are going to be built? These buildings are being moved back to a lot on Two Shore Road, sort of half a block behind it. You guys all understand that? Yes. Okay. Who wants to go? Or should we have, Leah, should we have Paul? Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Paul Santos and Chloe Coggins from Nantucket Surveyors on behalf of the current property owner, Two Shore Nantucket LLC. It's our first time before your commission, and moving forward, you'll probably see Chloe more than you will myself. But for today's presentation, we are before you for a notice of intent that we filed for the redevelopment of Two Shore Road. More specifically, this is a piece of property off of Francis Street, and it directly is to the west side of the Salt Marsh Center. It's a residential property just behind the Salt Marsh Center. As Peter had mentioned, this application is for the proposed improvements to the existing site, specifically the move on of the existing dwelling located at 92 Washington Street, which this commission had previously reviewed and provided input to the Conservation Commission. And we are attaching that addition or that moved dwelling to the existing dwelling at Shore Road. We are also relocating or moving on site an existing garage, constructing a deck onto the recently the proposed renovated building, installation of an above grade pool with associated landscaping and utility insulation. The property itself is not located in any resource area that has jurisdiction under the Conservation Commission regulations, other than the fact that it is located within the AE flood zone. So it is in a flood hazard area with a designated elevation of 8. It is landward of the limit of moderate wave action and also landward of any velocity zone location. So the requirements under the 10th edition of the Mass Building Code is that any new construction on an area designated AE would be that the first floor elevation be constructed at the elevation of flood zone +2. So in this particular case, the minimum first floor elevation that is required is elevation 10. So what we are proposing to do is move the existing dwelling from 92 Washington Street, construct that building at elevation 10 or above, and then in this particular case, also elevate the two-story dwelling that's already on the site. That two-story dwelling right now is at approximately elevation 8. So at the end of the day, both the existing dwelling and the proposed move dwelling will be constructed in accordance with the 10th edition of the building code, which recommends a flood zone elevation +2. The structure would be completed with a concrete crawl space, if you would, all with appropriate flood vents in order to allow flood waters to pass through this site. The site itself right now, the ground elevation of the site is at approximately elevation 5, generally through the site anywhere between, in some cases a little bit lower, somewhere from 4 to 5 on the site. Again, the first floor elevation would be at 10. Part of the component is a pool to be constructed within the existing deck area. The recently updated Conservation Commission regulations that were adopted this past year or a year ago does not restrict pools within a flood zone, but they do have the caveat that any pool located within a flood zone must not be allowed to interact with floodwaters. In this particular case, the pool deck would be elevated at the same elevation 10, and the bottom of the pool would be located 1 foot above the existing grade, again, not to prohibit floodwaters from passing through the particular site. There would be no changes to the elevations of the existing property. All the work would be done in compliance with the requirement that no fill is placed. So the existing topography, the existing grade area for the entire site would be left as is. The application itself is before the commission, I believe, in 2 weeks before the Conservation Commission. It has not had its initial review before the Conservation. Simultaneously with the Conservation Commission, this application and the process or review of that process is also ongoing. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have, and look forward to your input.
Okay. Go ahead, Doug.
I'm always the first to volunteer. Thanks, Peter. And thanks, Paul, for your time today. I have a bunch of questions, many which may not actually be directed to you, maybe more remedial questions for Leah. So let me start with that. And I bet these are quick ones, Leah. On page 44 of the packet, it's titled Cracks Responses for Concom Review of 54 Washington. Did you mean that to be 54 Washington, or are we talking about 92 Washington and 2 Shore?
Can I answer that, Peter?
Yeah,
That was put in the packet because at the last meeting, you all reviewed 54 Washington. And so I wanted to put in the final response from Crack that I believe Tim shared or read at last week's Concom meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. I figured I was confused, but I would ask just to make sure I'm following correctly. I guess back to the property at hand here. I'm curious, are the two properties in question here, 2 Shore Road and 92 Washington, are they owned by the same owner by chance? That's a question for Paul.
No, this property is independently owned. The only involvement here is that in order to salvage or do the move off from 92, it's just coming to this site. In no way are the two applications tracked simultaneously between Conservation Commission, HDC, or even this board. This is just simply a building that's being moved to this property.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. It's one of the questions, one of the threads that I was curious about was if we stood back and looked at those two lots together, what would be the ultimate net impact on things like impervious, right? If one structure is being moved off of 92 Washington onto 2 Shore Road, you may not know the answer to this, but I'm curious what will happen to the lot at 92 Washington Street after that structure's been moved. Do you know if there's an intention to rebuild there?
Yes, 92 is a complete rebuild of that particular property.
Okay.
And that, I believe, has been issued an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. And I believe there is recommendations that had been issued to the Conservation Commission from this committee.
Okay,
So.
thank you. And Peter, thanks for humoring me here as I go through this list. I guess one of the questions I would have then is, what is the net impact on impervious once 92 Washington has been rebuilt and the structure that's currently on 92 Washington is moved onto 2 Shore Road? Are we running afoul of any limits or guidelines with regard to the amount of impervious that's allowed on the lot at 2 Shore Road? How about that?
I may be able to answer that. And I'm going to speak specifically to 2 Shore Road and typically how the Conservation Commission would review projects of this nature. So the ability of the land to absorb floodwaters is typically, essentially the way these are constructed is it may be an impervious structure or it's a structure constructed with a foundation, but there are requirements for flood vents. So in a sense, the water can completely pass. Any flood water that potentially could come to this property is not being directed anywhere differently than what it already is. Typically, a crawl space, a full foundation is not allowed in the flood zone for a residential property. So this particular case, you would have a foundation with a gravel base with flood venting that is directly related to the square footage of the structure to allow floodwaters to pass and recharge on the particular property. So in a sense, we're not really adding. We'll have the ability to absorb floodwater in the same manner it did before the development was proposed.
Okay, thank you. I'm curious if a deck contributes, is that considered impervious?
Typically what the commission will do is they may require a larger spacing on the deck itself with regard to the wood so rainwater can pass through it. And that happens a lot on elevated walkways, boardwalks, things of that nature to allow light penetration. But there are cases where instead of providing a deck that everything is butt together, that the water, you can get passage of rainwater. That's a rainwater question, passage of rainwater through the property. The ability to move water underneath the deck is not going to change. But there is a way to regulate that through the order of conditions.
Okay. Thank you. I have just two left. One is with regard to landscaping. I noticed in the photos of both of these properties, but I'll focus on Two Shore Road, that it has up until currently has had a fairly manicured lawn. And I'm curious if there'd be willingness on the part of the owner to convert to more native plants.
It's a recommendation we could pass. The owner here has I've worked on a couple properties on the flood zone, and they've been more than willing to work with, to keep the property, in line with whatever the requirements are. In this particular case, it's virtually right now, it's a lawn. It's lawn with, I believe, privet along the salt marsh center. And there's, some fencing out there. So there's really not a lot of landscaping on this particular property at present.
Just thinking in terms of its proximity to the harbor, it would be ideal if we could get more property owners to opt away from fertilized landscape. And the last one, sorry, there's a comment in the NOI about how that no construction materials will be stored on site. I'm just curious how that's possible. How's a developer, as a builder, how do you go about doing a project like this and not leaving construction materials on site?
Is that wouldn't necessarily be in our narrative? Is that in the actual body of the order? I think what they're typically looking for is they don't want to see fill or anything like. Obviously, there's going to be construction materials on the site.
Yeah.
What they're a lot of the time would be looking at is not storing gasoline products or oil products, things like that would be susceptible to flood waters or anything along that line. So there's typically a protocol that might be issued as part of the order of conditions. No fill is brought to the site. No storage along those type of items would be, stored in the garage at the first floor or anything along that line. So.
Okay. Thanks again. That's all I got. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Doug. Who's next? Who has questions or comments? Matt, go ahead.
Just a couple comments. One, do I have it on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. One
Yes.
is, I was doing a lot of my decking, the traditional way, like it was about a nail's width in between the decking. And we started, finding that we had to do it, like a 1/4 inch. And once it was all rotting. When it was a nail's width, it would expand and the stuff would get stuck there. And we started doing everything a little wider and it looks a little funky. You look at it and think, oh, why is it so wide? And then you realize that it doesn't rot. We've got mahogany that lasts for years because it's not trapping a lot of the dirt and a lot of the water, and it dries out. So there's an advantage. It isn't how you traditionally see it, but it was just interesting. And we've started doing that as we renovate, fix and maintain the various properties, and it's working great. And then the other thing I have to bring up is we always look and go, oh, saltwater pool. And isn't that great? It's salt water. Actually, a saltwater pool is creating forever chemicals to clean the pool itself. And supposedly they are worse in some regards than traditional chlorine pools, which after 10 days or so, the chlorine dissipates. And so it's not really necessarily in our purview of this board, but I hope that the Concom or the Board of Health thinks about it, because there are places in California and Iowa, et cetera, that no longer allow those pools. And if they do have them, people have to put the water in tankers and bring it out for treatment. They are not allowed to put that water into the environment because it's permanently a problem. So those are my two. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Matt, and just as an aside, any order of conditions now received for pools from the Conservation Commission does have the requirement that no discharge and everything would be taken off by, if it needs to be drained, would be taken off by a tank truck.
Right. Yeah, and I understand that, but I have yet to see a lot of tank trucks driving around.
No, yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So, and I know a lot of the pools are being drained and fixed fairly often. So,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Tim, did I see you put your hand up?
Yes, I was just going to say exactly the same thing about the Concom requirements for not allowing, you can't drain your pool into the neighborhood or the harbor. So, but Paul covered it.
All right, thanks. Hillary, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi. I I don't know if it was just my screen, but you froze up a little bit at the beginning. Did you mention whether or not what the status is relative to the HDC is?
It's currently been submitted to the HDC. So the initial review has not happened yet.
Okay.
So
And I'm not as familiar as I should be with the guidelines on elevation. Is the uh, is the plan to elevate within the guidelines for elevation in historic districts, or are you asking for something different?
no, we're asking to just recap that the 10th edition of the building code, Hillary, says that any new construction, you have to elevate the first floor at the flood zone +2. So in this case, flood zone is 8, your first floor would need to be at 10. Now, within the zoning code, there are provisions with regard to the 30-foot height requirement that say in the flood to the minimum requirement of the building code, you could exceed that 30-foot height requirement. But again, that's all subject to approval of the HDC. In this particular case, the addition that's coming over, it's only I think it's a 1.5 story. So even with the elevation to 10, I don't think that one exceeds the 30-foot height. If you went out to this site today, I believe this building is approximately, the peak of this building from grade is about 29. So we're going up obviously 2 feet. So this building, I think, would be at around elevation 31 to the peak. And we are located in the commercial neighborhood zoning district for this particular piece of property. This was originally zoned RC. It is currently zoned CN.
Right. And so then the commercial neighborhood allows greater than 30 feet by planning board approval. Am I right about that?
I don't know if the commercial neighborhood does. No, the
Oh,
more
I
than
think I'm
30
thinking it's
feet.
PDT.
Yeah. The more than
Yeah.
30 feet would be allowed under the provisions of the height requirements for building within a flood zone.
Okay.
So
Right.
if I came, let's just say by example, the minimum requirement that this building has to be is at 10. But if the owner said, oh, I want to elevate it to 12, then that would require relief because the zoning code says to the minimum, I mean, you could build it to a higher elevation, but you would then need relief to do it. So this would be done by right under the zoning code. Again, HDC is going to have the final say on whether they feel it's appropriate or not. And just as another aside, the Conservation Commission now will not review or close hearings on projects unless they have already been any other board that you need. The commission wants to see you at that, and they're sticking to that now. When they adopted the new regulations, they went to that format. So you have to have at least been submitted to the HDC or whatever other board you may need before they will close the hearing.
Submitted or submitted in approval?
It's tracked submitted. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily need approval, but it has to be submitted.
Okay.
So, and this
Okay.
is, I want to say the first meeting in February, I believe. This is when this one is being heard at the HDC.
Okay. Thank
So.
you.
Thanks, Paul. And thanks, Hillary. Go ahead, Gary.
Thank you. As my colleagues know, I'm not a big fan of pools in the flood district, and this one is pretty close to the water. And I always find that very troublesome. But to me, worse is where you've located the pool. I mean, it's abutting absolutely right next to the senior center. And it seems so inappropriate to have a pool with all of the noises generated by families and kids and music and stuff like that, where you have your most important senior center in the island. Most of the time when we see these pools, they stick them in middle of the property somewhere where they're not so obvious. And this one seems to me like it's going to be pretty obvious. Maybe that's more of a decision for the HDC than for the Conservation Commission, but it sure doesn't make me feel good to see people continue to put pools up just a short distance from the water, knowing what could happen in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Gary. Go ahead, Liz.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning, Paul and Chloe. Thanks for presenting this. I just had a clarification question. That it looks like there's basically two structures that are being moved, and both structures are kind of going to be put together, it looks like, as an addition. Just making sure that both of those structures are going to be raised to that 11-foot elevation with the flood vents.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, the way actually the 92 Washington Street building, that small little wing that I show is 14 by 26 is actually too big right now. It wouldn't fit under the zoning setbacks. So that building will be cut and kind of pushed in. So there'll be some modification to it. But the entire addition that becomes what's moved over will be elevated to the elevation, the minimum flood zone requirement.
Okay, and obviously the garage will just be moved, but it stays slab on grade construction.
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then I guess, yeah, my only concern really would be the pool being, the bottom of the pool being 12 inches above grade. To me, that's still, might displace floodwaters. So that to me is added structure, and I realize that it's being somewhat offset by raising the existing dwelling, but that would be, the concern that I would raise.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Do you have something to add, Paul?
No, I was just going to say the pool will be scrutinized at both the Conservation Commission and the HDC. There's no question, I think, about that. So.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, just thinking about it, when a house like this is moved and raised, are they making it possible to raise it another block or two high in the future if they need to? Is that part of the thought process to make the foundation strong enough or to make the building able to be, unbolted and lifted up again?
Yeah, I don't think it would make much difference, Matt, on the foundation design. It's really framing at that point. I mean, quite honestly, if the property owner had their druthers here, they'd like to raise this even higher than the 10, quite honestly. But I don't think that would be technically an issue. I mean, that's the whole purpose of raising the existing dwelling. Technically, under the building code, I don't think they are actually required to raise what's out there now. So as an aside, if I'm working on a building that does not meet the current flood zone requirements, and you might have heard of this before, like the 50% rule. It's basically when you start to renovate a structure, they look at 50% of the fair market value of the structure, not so much the land and the structure. And if you exceed 50%, then you are required to bring that structure into compliance with the current flood zone standards. In this particular case, adding the addition in this site doesn't necessarily trigger that, but the owner does want to raise that structure and make it all compliant with the current flood zone standards.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just looking in my own head thinking if I were doing it, and the same thing, we're going to have issues on Easy Street, and those are large buildings. Are they going to pick them up to a certain height and then be able to pick them up further someday as needed? It's sort of, if this is a chance to think ahead, I just hope that people are thinking ahead and not having to, spend a little bit of money now so you don't have to spend a lot of money later. So, thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Peter. I'll be quick. Something Liz said triggered a thought for me, which is about groundwater and the fact that we can know as much as we know about groundwater today. My understanding is that currently like MCFRM. There's no forecast for how groundwater is going to change. And so, in the spirit of what Matt was saying, if you can think ahead now, we may be able to project what sea level will look like and what storm flows will look like over the next several decades. I don't know that we'll be able, with any accuracy, to know what the groundwater situation is going to look like. But to the degree that the pool is currently proposed to be a foot above the current grade, I think that would be something worthy of consideration. And again, we're an advisory committee, so we can't tell you. We have no authority to tell you what to do. But I think we're here to just encourage you and people like you to be thinking further out as best you can, because as Peter likes to say, the water is coming, particularly in this location. Thank you very much.
Do we have any more? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I should know the answer to this, but I just wanted to ask Paul, can you not raise your house higher than, in this case, higher than the 2 feet, without running into problems with the total height of the house? Or if they wanted to raise it another 2 feet, could they, according to building codes?
I think they would have to seek relief from the zoning board of appeals, Tim, because under the requirement for the building height, you're allowed to elevate the structure to what the minimum requirement is for the particular flood zone. So it would be questioning. So now you're exceeding more of the 30-foot requirement of the building height than you would be allowed. So I think it would be a zoning board of appeals. I believe it would be a zoning board of appeals request.
Oh, thank you.
And also the HDC would then have the ability to, review that also based on the height of the structure.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I think Doug was just saying, is there a way to know how much the water is going to rise? And it is going to be based on how much how much the groundwater is going to rise is going to be based on how much the water rises. We're not going to know exactly when it's going to happen or, how long it's going to take. But we do know that X amount of rise is going to mean X amount of groundwater coming up. Last week, I was under a building down on Washington Street that was fairly dry, a little squishy in a couple spots, but lots of times this time of year, it's pretty wet and it holds the water. And we've had some of the owners down there also show us, and open up a hatch and show us where the water is all the time down there. So I think it's pretty, a lot of those areas, not necessarily where Paul is here, that's up a bit higher, but some that are closer are pretty wet already and will be worse. So.
Yeah, we do historically have a shallow groundwater in this particular area. This particular site, I don't think we've ever necessarily, the floodwaters at this point haven't risen up into this particular area. Even with some of the extensive high tides and so forth we've had, but I know Francis Street was wet last week and Barrett was in there doing some work on, I think, the water main or something along that line, but.
Okay, go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Paul, for all of this. Just a couple questions. Will the utilities be elevated? I think on the plan that some sort of wires being buried. I don't know what that referred to.
Yeah, that Leah, there's an existing utility pole. There's an overhead utility pole in the area, the backside of the garage. So they were looking to potentially put that below grade, or simply move the pole and keep it above ground. Any utilities associated with the building, exterior air condensers, air handling units, things of that nature, all have to be elevated above the flood zone with the building.
Okay, great. And then, because I'm not an engineer, I'm just trying to picture the pool. What will be under the pool to support it? Will there be some like pilings or?
Yeah, what we've proposed in the past in this particular case, there'll be helical piles that would be drilled into the ground, and then there would be basically a concrete footing or a grade beam that would be built, and then the pool would then be elevated above that with appropriate flood openings. So it would be similar to the foundation basically for the structure, with the ability to elevate and then put the flood openings or keep openings along the bottom side of the pool.
Okay, thanks for explaining that. That's all I have.
Yeah, I guess I just have a general statement or comment. Maybe there's a question in there somewhere, but with the CRP, with what we do here on this committee, we're hoping people get the message that over time, building in the flood zone is not the thing you want to do. And I know that people are hedging their bets and saying, well, I'm looking at the data, I'm reading the plan, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, and I think I got 10 years, or maybe I have 15 or 20. But I think the trend is moving away from the water. And so I'm just curious, did 92 Washington Street structures have to go to this lot, Paul? Or could they have gone somewhere else? Could they gone somewhere else further from the water? Because a lot of money is going to get expended to move it, to set it, to get it in place, to get it above the water. And we don't necessarily know, we have our worst case scenarios, we have our conservative scenarios, but the water is, like Doug said, is going to come up, and we may not be getting storm surge coming back as far as this lot or in this area, but eventually it's going to happen. And I'm just, obviously, the people who come to you for your services are thinking that they've got some time, and I'm hoping that we can change that mindset. Okay. That's it. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Go ahead, Leah.
If no one else wants to comment, I think we answered pretty much all the questions that are on our document. Just need to know about the pool, how the committee feels about that, how you want to comment on that. This is the first pool that you all, that's come before you for comment. So just need to know what you want to write in that response to Concom.
Okay. Go ahead, Hillary. Well, go ahead, Doug. I think you're up first.
Go ahead, Hillary. It's fine.
Oh, I was
Okay.
going to ask you to please go ahead. You
Go ahead,
first.
Hillary. Go ahead, Hillary.
Okay. I was just going to say that I'm just not, if the goal is to make sure that the pool waters don't mingle with the flood waters, I'm not, do we feel that we can really say that? I don't know enough to be able, I just think we need to be careful about, we need to, our letters need to give factual guidance. So if we're going to say that the pool, I think we need to either say the height of the pool will prevent intermingling of floodwaters and pool waters, or there's not a viable height to prevent that. And I guess I would be looking for some guidance from the folks that have really been studying this for some time as to what we could say that would be helpful in our letter on that point.
Okay, thanks, Hillary. And just before I give Doug another chance, we have to be careful that we don't run into the jurisdictions of the HDC and the Conservation Commission, because they're going to get deep into this. I mean, we could say what we think, but we shouldn't expend a lot of time when we're not we shouldn't spend a lot of time outside of our coastal resilience jurisdiction. So we have to be thinking about how coastal resilience relates to the existence of this pool in this place. Go ahead, Doug.
I think I was going to say pretty much the same, Peter, that as an advisory group, we have no authority to tell anybody anything about what they need to do. But as an advisory committee, we can give our advice. And I think I'm just looking at the faces on this Brady Bunch screen, and I'm willing to bet that the vast majority, a large quorum of this group, would actively discourage anyone in this location adding a pool. It is not a wise long-term decision. That's my advice. I imagine that's what Crack's advice would be. That and 25 cents will buy you not even a cup of coffee. But that would be my take. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, that and $8 will buy you a cup of coffee, Doug. I think, is there a staff recommendation? I do think that, is there a staff recommendation on how to handle that aspect?
If I could just briefly, let me just read to you this is the standard by which the Conservation Commission has in their regulation regarding the pools. It says all swimming pools are required to be designed to have no ability to interact with flood waters. That's the performance standard that's in the Conservation Commission regulations. And just one other thing, we are before this date might be important to you. We're before the commission on February 5th, Leah. So I don't know if you provide any, hopefully, recommendations to the commission before or on that date. But we're before them on February 5th for the first hearing on this project. Thank you.
Go ahead, Doug. No. All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, is there a staff recommendation on how to handle this, Leah? What is your knowledge and et cetera recommend we do?
So if we're just looking based on the coastal resilience plan, this property is in high and moderate high risk to structures. So with that being said, I mean, in the CRP, I don't think it specifically calls out, pools or not pools. I think the way that Paul has designed it, it seems like floodwaters can go underneath it. I would suggest that difference between the grade and the bottom of the pool be increased. So, if we're just seeing a foot of flooding, that's not a whole lot. But I don't know. It's hard. This is the first one that we're discussing.
Go ahead, Matt.
Follow up. Well, is the comment that we'd rather not see pools in these areas, but if we do, that we recommend they, et cetera, the water flows and it be high enough and et cetera, et cetera. Like, is it, because I think part of what we can do is start to point, sort of point some of this to the right places in the right direction. It seemed crazy. Someone, the laws allowed it before that someone wanted to put a pool in the dunes out in Mattocket. That didn't kind of make any sense from a coastal resiliency standpoint at all, in my mind. And so, that hasn't happened, luckily. But I just think that we have an opportunity to, even though we don't control it, I think we have an opportunity to, put it on, at least put the discussion out. Thank you.
And I want to just take off of what Matt just said. He said, this is our first pool. So what that means is no matter what we advise today, it's setting a precedent, and we're advisory, so we aren't. So people can't really build off that precedent, but they can say, well, the Crack said to do this with this pool, and we got to think carefully about where we go with this. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, I just want to reiterate something, which is kind of what Matt just said, and that is, suppose we said, basically, Crack does not favor plans that have pools in high-risk areas, and this is one of those high-risk flood areas, notwithstanding our feeling that the current regulations do not prohibit that, and so the different regulatory committees can do what they want with that, but at least they know for now and for the future that whenever we see something like this, if it's a high risk area, we're going to we're going to be basically unhappy about it, even though the regulations may not prevent us or them from stopping it. At least they'll know our position on it.
Okay, can I ask you a question? And maybe I've just been asleep for the entire meeting, but it's a hole in the ground with water in it. In this case, it's salt water, and it may have some chemicals in there that we don't like. But what are the other reasons why we don't want a pool in a high-risk area, a high-risk flood area? So if we're going to say we don't want it, why don't we want it?
Well, we know it's going to flood at some point.
So eventually, if a whole lot of water comes in there and goes into that pool, you've got a hole in the ground which will eventually blow out in one direction or another and then draw more water into it. And it's a big old mess. But I'm trying to, if we're going to say as a committee, we don't want this pool here, and that is going to color how we go ahead with looking at other pool proposals in high-risk flood areas, we ought to think about what we're going to say. That's all. Go ahead, Hillary.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it seems like we've done a lot of work to understand how to advise people who are going to continue to build in flood zones as long as it's legal. And it's legal on Nantucket with our zoning code and our conservation code. So this isn't a hole in the ground. It's a platform that's 1 foot above with a gravel base. And it's an out of ground pool. And everything is up on platforms. And it says that the water will flow under the buildings and be absorbed into the ground. So, I mean, I guess I would look to our staff to say, do we feel that this application is an example of excellent compliance with our advice, or are there areas that we feel could be improved? And, I think we can continue to say this is a high risk area, but I think our job is to point out areas that could be improved, because I do want to acknowledge that the applicant is making the accommodations. It appears to me that the applicant's making the accommodations our code asks them to make. And if we're not satisfied, then that's a planning process to make changes to the code going forward. That's a question. Does that make sense? Because I'd love to have an answer if there are areas that Leah, you feel this application could be improved.
Go ahead, Leah.
I just mentioned that to increase the, I guess the difference between top of grade to bottom of pool. So increase it from a foot to, I don't know what the correct number would be, but a foot doesn't seem like very much.
Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I mean, to me, it is a structure. It's an added structure, and it's the bottom of the pool elevation is going to be, like Leah said, 1 foot above grade, which I think Paul said was 6 feet, about 6 feet in this area. So that's like 7 feet. So it is below the elevation of the base flood. So I agree with Leah that we should recommend raising that if possible.
All right, thanks, Liz. Gary?
I just continue to think that if we say nothing about our disinclination to approve these kind of things, not that we have that approval power anyway, it's just suppose that it says, okay, well, it's okay with crack. So this guy he builds, and the next guy, he said, well, it's been approved. So he builds one as well. And do you think that's really good for Nantucket to have a bunch of homeowners who now own property in high risk zones feel very comfortable putting in these pools? Because eventually, when the waters come, having more than one will be bad, and having a lot of them will be worse for Nantucket generally. So I think we shouldn't walk away without the opportunity to say we really frown upon this, although the current regulations do not prohibit that. Perhaps we can get regulatory change to make them stricter. But in the meantime, we don't want to encourage people to do the same thing everywhere they have property near the water in a high-risk zone, that's all. That's not good for Nantucket.
Well, I guess that's why I'm saying, we have to think about what we are going to say.
Well, Doug is talking about planting a certain kind of plants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how is that consistent with putting in a whole bunch of swimming pools by all these people who live near the harbor? Very inconsistent messages.
Hey, Liz, go ahead.
Okay, just quickly, that's a good point, Gary. I mean, I think we can also look at it as just saying it's additional structure in a flood zone, which is specifically, discouraged in the CRP. So even just from a structural standpoint, we can say, we don't recommend adding structures in a flood zone, which the pool is an additional structure.
Thanks, Liz. Leah.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, going off what Liz just said. So in the CRP under high coastal risk, it says due to imminent and growing risk, large structural investments are not recommended in these areas under most circumstances, except where necessary to ensure public safety. So I think, the pool, all of that can fall under this.
Part of our plan.
So the pool falls under this as not necessary, is what you're saying.
In the CRP under the high coastal risk, it says that structural investments are not recommended. This would be, in my opinion, a structural investment.
Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Matt.
I should know this, but does a pool, I know a deck doesn't count to a ground cover. Does a pool count to a ground cover? Have we taken that out?
A pool does not count against ground cover.
And it's another way to think about it. Imagine if it did, and people had to make a choice between, the third or fourth bedroom and third or fourth bathroom or the pool, which would they pick? I'm not saying we can't do that, but it just seems that we've been taking things away from ground cover, and sort of as much as I've been paying attention, and some of these things that we think, oh, it'll flow and the water will do this, it all adds up a little bit. And so I don't know. I just think it is a structure. It is something that is going to have an impact that we don't necessarily know. Is it gonna, if it floods, are some of these, going to lift up, and, are they going to be partially emptied, and are they going to lift up with flood water? Who knows what's going to happen, And so anyway, I feel comfortable based on what Leah just heard, saying that this is an investment in a high risk area that our plan and our committee recommends against, but and we understand that we can't necessarily stop it.
Just reading what Leah read to us, putting that into our response should be sufficient. It's the exact language in the CRP plan, which says they're not recommended unless there's a necessity. Period.
How do we feel about all of that? I haven't heard anything from you, Joanna. Do you have anything to say? No.
No, thank you. Weighing in on all of this is not my area of expertise, right? And so I am not comfortable with, I listen to what everybody is saying, and when we vote on this, I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
So thank you.
Sure. Emily, do you have anything to say? Do you have any thoughts?
I like the language in the CRP and just following under those guidelines that have already been laid out as the foundation of how we make decisions. So I like that language there.
All right, thank you. Leah, do you have enough from us? Do you get what we're saying to form that into a letter?
Yep, I'll form that into a letter. I have Tim look it over, and then he Tim, do you still read it at Concom or does it just go into the packet?
It just goes into the packet.
Okay, so then it goes into the packet and then the Concom reps decide what to do with it.
Right. And then in theory, I report back what effect it had on the order of conditions. I'll report back to Crack. Sorry.
Okay. Leah?
I just wanted to answer Paul's question from a while ago. Paul, this will get into the packet for the February 5th meeting. So
Okay.
I'll work this up this week and then I'll send it over to Will and Lisa to put in the packet.
Okay. And just so the committee knows, I mean, I'll be forthcoming, or Chloe will be forthcoming at that meeting regarding, what we discussed at this committee meeting. So, I mean, we're not trying to, obviously you'll have it in writing, but we'll be forthcoming on what the discussion was also.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Leah for working out this process so that we can consider these things before the Concom meetings and not delay the progress. I think the document you put together was great, and it pretty quickly has become a manageable process. This was kind of a long discussion, but it's our first one. So, but thanks, Leah. I think this is a good process.
All right, great. Go ahead, Hillary.
I just wanted to also add thanks for that, and that as this group becomes more familiar with the practicalities on the ground, we'll be better positioned to recommend amendments or changes to how we do things going forward, which will be very helpful to the planning board.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment? Okay. Thanks, Chloe, and thanks, Paul, for being here. We appreciate all the effort going into this and seeking out our comments.
Okay. Thank you all. And I believe we're going to be back before you next month with the Salt Marsh Center expansion, a little bit less controversial, I believe.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. A brief summary from the Steamship Authority about their upcoming build grant application for terminal resiliency. Okay, I believe that is Carolyn Muldoon who's just joined us.
Yes, good morning. My name is Caroline Muldoon. I'm the grants administrator at the Steamship Authority. The Steamship Authority is submitting for the third year in a row a request for funding for the Nantucket Terminal Feasibility Study, which is meant to look at relocation of the existing terminal, recurring flooding conditions in at the wharf and in the surrounding areas, similarly to the Easy Street mitigation project that you guys have going on. We are working currently with Arcadis, who is also your firm for that Easy Street mitigation flooding project. And today we are looking for a letter of support for our application to the build program. I'm happy to answer any questions. We know that it's a priority for Nantucket as well as ourselves. Obviously, the terminal becomes inaccessible when these storm events and flooding conditions become, it makes the terminal inaccessible. But I am happy to answer to the best of my ability any questions that you may have or bring them back. But again, we're looking for a letter of support from the committee.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. I just want to say on behalf of our committee, this is our first step in speaking with the Steamship Authority on what their plans will eventually be. And we've been going through a process of trying to engage with property owners along the waterfront downtown to find out what their coastal resilience plans are, and to ensure that they all mesh with the town. So we're not having, some weak, some strong. We want a unified front when we're dealing with coastal resilience. So, we had the Great Harbor Yacht Club at our last meeting. As you can see, we are working with town review boards when it comes to issues of coastal resilience. We're trying to protect our downtown as well as the island, as well as get into people's heads that sea level rise is happening, and we're trying to I don't know, get ahead of it, be proactive. So thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Who has questions or comments? Go ahead, Gary.
Just a question for Caroline. Thank you for being here. Have you applied for, is this the first time we're making this request?
So we've submitted it was previously raised under the previous administration. It's now billed program. This will be the third time with this specific project for funding, for planning funding for this feasibility study, with the idea that we would hopefully get the money, conduct the feasibility study, and have an idea for construction after that. And again, relocation of the terminal.
During the prior applications, have you received any positive feedback that says, yes, we're thinking about it, we're almost ready to give it to you?
Yes, we've received the last 2 years, we've received Project of Merit status, which means we were brought up for that last review, received really great feedback, which is why we circled back and I connected with Leah, Mike, and Vincent from Nantucket to try and really pair some of the research that we have or some of the narrative that we have with the Easy Street study that they have going on, and trying to use that for some support, as well as looping in Arcadis for an updated timeline and cost estimate so that everything is up to date. Kind of trying to cross our T's and dot our I's to get us over the finish line here, because it's obviously really important for all of us. And I think sometimes we're, being so small, we're not given the credit that we should be for it being such a huge need. But we're circling all the troops this year to try and really get this over the finish line.
Great.
And Carolyn, is that to say that you've applied twice but not gotten funded?
Yes.
And they are just
when it comes into the final pool, we're just not selected for a final project.
But they work with you, right? They come back to you and say the reason that you didn't know.
And so we have had debriefs afterwards, yes. And so the 2 years ago, 2024, we added some language or support for financial capacity and readiness, what that looks like in our budget to be able to support the 20% match. And then last year we were asked to add some information regarding, some quality of life stuff, which again, we're working with Arcadis. Sometimes it's just phrasing different rubric criteria as previous administrations too. So it's trying to adapt our current application to, match the priorities of this administration and review team.
And so this time us helping you,
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Hillary, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. A couple questions. So I'm not familiar with all of the Steamship Authority's terminals, but are there terminals on that other island or the mainland that also need to be moved or studied?
So I do believe that right now the steamship's priority would be Nantucket. Obviously, we have the Woods Hole terminal going up as we speak and being finalized. And so the Nantucket with the inaccessibility during these flooding events is really our priority.
Okay. I'm just asking because I've heard that one of the things that makes a grant more competitive is collaboration between different towns, and also different regional commissions.
Yes.
So I don't know. I just wondered, would it be, well, it's pretty advanced in the process, but it sounds like you decided that wasn't for a variety of reasons an advantage to put in a joint with the Martha's Vineyard Commission.
I'm sorry. So we have submitted letters of support with our last couple applications from local delegation, the towns, and I believe Martha's Vineyard was one of them. The town of Nantucket has submitted a letter of support previously. It was Leah, Mike, and Vincent's idea to bring it to you as well, so that, again, the more letters, the more show of support to really get us over that finish line. But we're hoping to actually submit kind of as a formal partnership with the town. And we're discussing that with them, but to really make sure that from the get-go, this is something that includes the tie-in of infrastructure, obviously with all the hard work that you guys are putting in on Easy Street, that none of that is overlooked and it's, you know, addressed from the beginning to make sure everything's flows smoothly. So this money is just for the feasibility study. So there's been no talk of plans or anything like that. Obviously, there'll be a lot of public outreach and stuff as we you know, make any sort of decisions, but this is really just to get things moving.
Okay, thank you. Now, have you presented to the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission?
For this project, not necessarily. It really is just in the, you know, stating our concerns, showing how much it often floods. Obviously, we have the study that obviously bolsters that on the from the island, and then trying to get, you know, this money, and then after that point, there'll be much larger conversations as they start to look at potential options.
Right. Just, I also serve on that commission because I'm here as the planning board representative to the CRAC. So I would just encourage, if there's time, I don't know when is the grant application due?
February 24th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe you could get in front of the NP and EDC and have their support as well.
That would be great.
And if there was a way that you could mention what I kind of opened the meeting with about how the Steamship Authority plays an integral part of our coastal resilience plan for the downtown area. You know, this is I don't want to say we're going on ahead without you, but we need the Steamship Authority to be moving along, hopefully roughly at our pace, so that we get to the point where we have a project. I'm thinking of Easy Street and Broad Street, that you guys are ready. So I know that people who can write better than I can and think in this area better than I can, like Leah and Vince, can put that into the right words for you, but that would be a way to go.
That would be great.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Do you learn which projects did get grants, and if so, does that give you any insight into what you need to do to get to the top?
Yes. So there are a list of the grants awarded, and some of them are smaller amounts, which is also why we reached out to Arcadis to make sure our submitted design percentage is aligned with our financial request. And then just looking at those, I mean, it's a pretty wide range of what they're looking at. The build program is really broad in what you can submit for. You know, we would happily take advantage of, and we do take advantage of every grant opportunity that's available to us. This just being such a, I guess you could say, a broad project, unless we look at ferry boat passenger, which is also for terminals, but we've been trying to use that for ferry replacement. That this one seems to be the best option, which means just the projects that are awarded are also as broad.
I see. Thank you.
Go ahead, Leah.
Thanks, Peter. So the letter that is in your packet, that is, Caroline sent us a template. I updated it with coastal resiliency information within it. And then if you got to see the second paragraph, it says that the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee and the NPEDC and the Select Board all recommend this project. So today what we need is a recommendation to give to the Select Board, which is actually going to be on their agenda tomorrow night, to be able to sign it. I'm not sure if just Dawn, the chair, will sign it, or if Dawn, Peter, and Abby DiMolino, all three chairs from the three commissions, will sign it. So that's what we're looking for today.
Do we have more comments? And okay, I assume everybody read it. I'm rereading it as we speak. And I don't have any problems with it. So if we've all read it and we like it, unless there are more comments, I guess I would be looking for a motion to go with this letter. Doug, go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Doug has made a motion that we support this letter and go ahead. Tim has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Doug Rose,
Aye.
Emily Junkins,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Hillary Hedges report,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay,
Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. Please come back to us anytime.
Yes, absolutely.
Hopefully the next time we see the Steamship Authority, you will have gotten your funding and the feasibility study will be moving along and we'll get some sort of update from you.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much.
But if you could, you know, when you hear something, when you have news, let us know.
Of
Or
course.
let Leah email Leah. Keep her in the
Sure.
loop.
I do believe the window is June for what we would hear back from this. So I
Okay,
will keep you guys in the loop. Thank you very much.
excellent.
Take
Great.
care.
Thanks for your time. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask for public comment. Is there public comment on this? And there's no members of the public.
Peter, can I
Okay.
just ask Matt a real quick question regarding this?
Go ahead.
Matt, tomorrow night at the select board, do you need my attendance there at all to discuss anything about the letter? Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, I doubt it.
And Matt, do you think that I think I'll probably be there for another matter. I think I'll be signing that letter.
However you want to do it. I think it's a kind of an easy one.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Our committee members' coastal resilience recommendations to the select board to be discussed at a future meeting. This is always going to be on our agenda. Anybody has anything to say? Are you waving, Leah, or is it Isla?
That's Isla.
Okay. She have anything she wants to contribute? No. All right.
No.
That's fine. Okay. All right. New business committee and natural resources department reports from planning board, conservation commission, harbor and shellfish advisory board, select board, advisory committee of non-voting taxpayers, and other committee members. Okay. Hearing nothing. Discussion of upcoming meeting dates and future meeting topics. February 10, 2026 is our next meeting at 10 a.m. on Zoom. Okay. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
Motion's made by Matt Fee to adjourn the meeting, second by Tim Brain, and we will do roll call vote. Emily Junkins,
Aye.
Gary Beller,
Aye.
Tim Brain,
Aye.
Doug Rose.
Aye.
You there, Doug? You putting your hand up? Okay.
I thought I said aye.
Okay, Hillary Hedges report,
Aye.
Matt Fee,
Aye.
Liz Phelps,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Great day for sledding. See you all at Dead Horse Valley.